So my topic is two opposed attitudes towards science in time of pandemic, and actually it's a topic you know better than me, and because all the time, especially in this pandemic, we are encountering these two different attitudes, especially when we are talking about the vaccine. So this is a little, So this is the structure of the talk. After a short introduction, I will present these two opposed attitudes. The first one is science is a promise of salvation. And this is very, very well known to us, because when the scientists and the governments announced the vaccine, they said, okay, look, get vaccinated, and when we all get vaccinated, all problems are solved. So in this sense, there is a very optimistic view on science, in the sense that it can redeem us from the coronavirus. The second opposite attitude is a distrust of science. So these are the opponents of the vaccine, and for different reasons. So later we will see some of the reasons. Actually, this phenomenon is not restricted to the current pandemic, but I would like to go a step back and to look at these two attitudes from a more general philosophical point of view. Actually, in the last 200 years, from the industrialization on, we are encountering these two attitudes. So it's nothing special happening now in this coronavirus pandemic. We have this very optimistic view and a very negative, a skeptical view of science. But at the end, as already Aristotle knew, the truth is in the middle, in the right measure between two extremes. So at the end, I will propose a renewed look at the personalistic dimensions of scientific activity, actually as a way to inspire creativity. So, but we have to arrive at this point. Till the end, it will be a little bit theoretical, but I hope it will be okay for you. So I can anticipate that the three personalistic dimensions are described by these three Greek words: logos, ethos, pathos. Well, this is the epistemological dimension, the ethical dimension, and the aesthetical-existential dimension. But we will arrive at this point. So our current cultural context is characterized by the mathematical empirical sciences. So if you don't believe this, that we live in a scientific age, please look into your pocket or look into your bag, and when you find such a device, so this is the proof that we live in a scientific age. So you should revise your views.
This is the proof that we live in a technological age.
Okay, so that's right. A good point. I have already actually simplified this. You are right. So a lot of times we equate science and technology, but these are two different things. So if you ask what is the biggest scientific achievement in the 20th century, someone would say the computer. But this is not a scientific achievement, it's a technological. Scientific achievement would be, for example, the discovery of the DNA. So, okay. Okay. So, not some people don't agree with me, I'm sorry. Okay, so we can distinguish science and technology, but in the popular view, science is technology, but okay. And in the last, say, 200 years, especially in the last century, we're witnessing an accelerated progress of technology. And it's true, no one can deny it, that the scientific progress and the technological progress has improved the human condition. So today, people live generally in a better condition than, say, some 200 or 300 years ago. So this is a fact. However, this process of accelerated progress is also ambiguous. On the one hand, we have this improvement of the human condition, but on the other hand, there are also new threats and new problems. We see, for example, dehumanizing effects. So this is about the topics of, say, genetic engineering, nuclear weapons, ecology, and the replacement of man by the machine. So the scientific and technological progress is very ambiguous. Nevertheless, there is a very optimistic view on this progress, and I have called this science as a promise of salvation. It's a little bit, I've taken this from the German language, where there is the word Heilsversprechen. So we know this from the Holy Scripture. We have also a professor of Holy Scripture, so he knows from his studies the special term of promise of salvation. But it seems that science today is the only instance or institution who can give a reliable promise of salvation. So perhaps religion can talk about salvation, but can it give salvation? And there are some obvious advantages of science. So scientific knowledge is objective. Today morning we heard about multiplicity, diversity, exclusion. But there is no exclusion in science. So you can be, I don't know, Catholic or Muslim, but the equations of general relativity hold. Or the theory of gravitation holds. So independent of your personal views, of your descendants, of your nature, of your culture, of your history, scientific knowledge is objective. And the second important advantage, it has practical applicability. So scientists are not only talking about how they can help you or improve your life, but actually by technology they are improving your life, they are helping you. So one could say that science is the only uncriticizable narrative form in our culture. One time ago this was religion, but today it's science. So it seems that science is capable of redeeming mankind from its fragility. I'm purposefully using this word redeeming, which is a religious term. And one extreme example of this optimistic view of science is the so-called transhumanist movement. So the transhumanists are convinced that it is possible to redirect evolution, and it is possible to enhance human beings. So up to this point in history, we were subject to the biological evolution. But by the use of our intelligence, of our technological abilities, we are able to direct the evolution in a direction which is favorable for us. And so they predict that we are actually approaching the so-called Man 2.0. So this would be an updated version of the human being, and at the end we would have the so-called post-human being. So this sounds perhaps like science fiction, but there's, for example, at the Oxford University, an institute which is studying these things. So this is a very optimistic view of science. So science is the foundation of our whole life existence, and it will improve our lives, and there is no doubt that it will be so. So this is one view. There is the other opposed view, which I called the distrust of science. So these people, they are philosophers, they are made part of different groups, not only proponents of conspiracy theories, but we have also philosophers, for example, like Heidegger or the Frankfurt school, who were very skeptical of science. So it seems that science is an anthropological threat. On one hand, it seems that the human being becomes more and more dependent on impersonal mechanisms. So a computer is deciding instead of me. I don't have the control about my life. And there is also the destructive potential of technology. I also mentioned nuclear weapons, so this is very obvious. Or if it is true that this coronavirus too is artificially constructed in a laboratory, so it becomes even more obvious that science is destructive. So 1 minute, okay. Okay. So I have to skip one part. We come directly to the personalistic dimensions. So on one hand you have the procedural aspect of technology, but there is more to this. If you look at the life of, say, famous scientists, how they elaborated their theories, you see that their whole personality is entering into their scientific work. So there is also a non-formal aspect of knowledge. There is the formal aspect, the study, techniques, experimental techniques, theoretical techniques, but also the whole personality, the creativity, for example, a philosophical or religious background, also art. And, okay, I have to skip all this, I'm very sorry. And I come directly to the three personalistic dimensions, and will say only very briefly. The epistemological dimension regards scientific activities and intellectual elaboration. So doing science is not only collecting sensory data and making some sense of it, but it's a real intellectual elaboration, something that cannot be measured. The second dimension, okay, we have said this, is the ethical-anthropological one, which is in principle very obvious. It's when we talk about the responsibility of scientists, so we are talking about this dimension. So I think you know this dimension sufficiently, so I can perhaps mention the third one, the aesthetical-existential dimension, when scientists discover the order and intelligibility of nature, they are encountering beauty. So there's an amazing coincidence between what we think up in our theories, in our laboratories, and how nature behaves. So the scientist is able to grasp the beauty of the universe. In this way we see that science is a human value. So the scientist is doing science as a human person. And this is actually the point of my talk, that in these two extreme attitudes, in the optimistic view and in the pessimistic view, we have a reduction of science. But if we would be able to rediscover the whole potentialities of the human person, and if we would rediscover the scientist as a human person, science as the activity of a human person, we would make a big step forward in discovering the creativity of the human person, because we would be able to use all the potentialities. And in this way we could, on one hand, advance in virtues, advance in searching for truth, and in promoting the common good. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry for this chaos in the slides.
Frankopan, hvala za ovo predavanje. Došli smo do zadnjeg u ovoj trećoj sesiji. Bruno Petrušić i Darko Rapić.
Pozdrav svima, kolega Bruno Petrušić i ja smo odlučili sudjelovati na ovom simpoziju s radom o teoriji zavjere i lažnim vijestima unutar katoličkog kritičkog vjeronauka i kolega Petrušić je trebao izlagati rad, ali je bio spriječen, pa evo njegovo ime se ispričavam i preuzimam njegovu ulogu. Rad je koncipiran na 3 dijela. Prvi dio govori općenito o vjeronauku ili ulozi vjeronauka u katoličku školu,